All right. So I'm gonna change up my question to reflect my personal day. We were just having a little chat about this, the presenters and myself. And I'd be interested in knowing from folks what is something that's happened today. And you can put it in the chat if you want, or you can just have it in your brain. What is something that's happened today or recently that has required you to be flexible and adapt? So, what's something that's happened to you today or recently that's required you to be flexible and adapt? Um, I was just talking about this. This is the more mundane. Is that I'm supposed to have a doctor's appointment next week, and they called this morning and said, "Oh, we're not even going to be in that day. Can you go ahead and make it that same time, but today?" So, anyways, that was my mundane thing. My less mundane thing was I was visiting France last week, and I was on a tour, and so wherever you sat down, it turned out that was the wrong place to sit. And someone was like, well, could you go sit over there? And so someone started naming it IBM, and it was for I've been moved. So now I've got IBM in my head, and maybe it's like the new who took my cheese, right? Oh, IBM. All right. So, with that, we are glad to see you here today. We have some great presentations lined up, and due to the move in I just got back from vacation and then I had a doctor's appointment. I don't have fun slides like I usually have, so I apologize for that. I do want to make sure I bring up a few things. One, John, do you want to mention anything about the dates for the SPDIG national meeting and what people should know or do about that?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. We've sent out now two surveys to try and find the best time. Essentially, we're looking at weeks in October. It would be held face to face in person in Washington, D.C. I always get the name slightly wrong, but it's the Friends Meeting Place of Washington, I believe. At any rate, Friends in Washington is the meeting place. Uh, and we are looking at the first week, second week, and third weeks of October. Most recently, the second survey was looking at the second and third weeks, I believe. If you haven't responded to that survey yet, go ahead and search your inbox, your email inbox for a subject email titled Reminder Directors Webinar. And there's a link in there to the survey. So that would be helpful if you respond to that. Jennifer and I, my fingers are crossed that we can make a decision on exactly when Jennifer and I meet next week. And then we'll be following up with hard dates for you all to help you plan out what your falls look like and hopefully be able to attend a face-to-face meeting with us.
Yeah. Any questions about that? And then, John, will you put a few of what the directions, what you just said into the chat, just so people can grab it if they need to?
Yeah, I'll be happy to. I'll grab the link to both surveys actually and put those in the chat and people can follow if you haven't responded to either of
Okay.
those,
And
respond to
any
those.
any questions about that or thoughts? All right, seeing none. Obviously, John and I are available by email. Or you can chat something later on if you think of something. So I have to say the most surprising IBM response was from Susan Shipley in Wyoming. John, you wouldn't have had a chance to see this yet. They had to cancel their meetings due to snow. That was surprising. All right. And I've been out of the country, so maybe if Wyoming snow has been a big news item, I missed it. All right. So thanks everyone who replied to that. It was interesting to read about your unexpected occurrences. And thanks, John, for that. The national meeting survey link. That's really helpful. Yeah, we just need to make sure that we capture the most people possible. It's funny because the first time we did the survey, um, I think there was like 5 people who weren't going to be able to go for various reasons. And, at least a few of them, I knew exactly who they were responding. I was like, oh, we can't do this meeting without. And so that's why we're doing this. All right. So couple of things. One is managing complex change is going to be our theme today. Be thinking about your dissemination toolkit. Obviously we've been talking about what complex change looks like, but we've also been talking about when it comes to the family engagement and family partnership presentations, what are you doing with your family partners to help disseminate your work to families? Like, how are you working together on that? Do you have a goal around reaching families? How do you measure success when it comes to reaching families? So be thinking about that along. You can think about your whole dissemination workbook that you completed in addition to that. As you know, the competition for the SPDIG is open right now. If you have received SPDIG money, or if you are going to receive new SPDIG money in fiscal year 2027. So if you are a 2022 grant, you received your money first in 2022, fiscal year 2022, a 2023, 2024, 2025, 2026, you can't receive a new grant. So you cannot receive new SPDIG funds and receive a new grant. That is in IDEA. I think we're going to start putting into the notice because it's so confusing for people. They don't realize that. You can be in a no cost extension and apply. So that's just like a general rule of thumb for you all to know for now and for the future. But please do have folks contact me if they have any questions. I'm the person to talk to. It's whenever there's a competition and a notice goes out, whoever's name is on there is who you should be speaking with. This is just a little tip. No matter what the competition is, always reach out because you never know what you're going to find out. Let's see what else. I'm trying to think of anything critical after a week of being gone from the office. Yeah, we'll be putting out a new newsletter soon, so be on the lookout for that. But also let us know if there is something that you'd want to include in the newsletter. SPDIG success, so where you can demonstrate impact. If you have a one-pager you'd want to share there. Or if you think there's a piece of research you think other people might be interested in, it doesn't even have to come from you. We do want to hear from you. All right. Any questions for me while I'm still doing general news? If you are asking for a no-cost extension, you can apply for a new grant. You're welcome. Okie doke. All right, so our first presenters, so we have two sets of presenters. One is just an individual and the other is a larger group. Our first presenter, this is kind of a fantastic story. Riley, she works with Beth Ficklin in Idaho. So Beth works with Idaho SPDIG. Riley is working at the university with Beth, and I should say Beth is an evaluator for the Idaho SPDIG. And a question had come up specifically about, from some evaluators. I can't remember if any project people were asking the same question. But when it comes to the evidence-based professional development worksheet, we have a section for training, right? We have a section for coaching. There was some question of whether we still needed to keep those separate. So the idea that you've got to focus on training and you got to focus on coaching and that you need both. That's the idea in the EBPD worksheet / rubric. So Riley did a lit review for us, and she'll tell us a little bit about her role, what she's doing right now, and then how she did the lit review. But let's all be listening as we're thinking about revising the EBPD rubric and worksheet. I think these are really helpful conversations for us to have. And I'd also be interested if anyone has anything to add to the conversation. So it's not just Riley telling you what's what. We got a question, we got to wrestle through it. We got to see what else is out there as well that might not have come across her computer screen. So that's going to be our first conversation. The second conversation is, as I was saying, about family partnerships and specifically Pennsylvania. The Pennsylvania SPIDIG has been working on this for a while. And so we don't want you to get overwhelmed with what they've put together and just say, we can't do that, but try to figure out elements of it. What's the bite that you can, or the chunk or the piece you could take off right now, or what's the low hanging fruit? Like, what could you start with? You don't have to get the whole thing together like they do, but what can you learn and apply to what you're doing? So, with that, I'm going to introduce our first speaker, Riley Kernan, and she can share her screen. And she has a little get to know you connector. And Riley, let us know if there's anything else we can do to help.
Are you guys able to see my screen okay?
Yes, looks good.
Perfect. I'm Riley Kiernan. I'm a graduate student evaluation assistant, like Jennifer Coffey said, with Beth Ficklin in the state of Idaho. And so that's a little bit about me. And Jennifer perfectly described what my purpose here is today and what I was looking for in the lit review. So here is a little starter for us. So pick one emoji that best represents your previous weekend, and then add a second emoji that you would say that you hope will represent your next weekend.
Riley, while people are responding in the chat to that, I love this question, by the way. And last weekend, I was trying to organize a bicycle ride for Mother's Day between my family and my sister's family. My sister has a Chihuahua with one tooth left. He's had all of his teeth pulled except for one. And the AI that I made to kind of represent the chat that I was using for that, I had AI make, or Chat GPT make a one-tooth Chihuahua emoji.
It can do virtually anything now,
It's
but I've
incredible.
never heard of a one-tooth chihuahua.
Dr. Lynn, do you mind sharing it?
Yeah, I'll see if it's got to go from my phone to, I'll get it in.
Okay.
Give me a minute and I'll get it in.
Okay.
I like that many people are adding like some sort of hobby. I think that they're hoping to enjoy or that they enjoyed the previous week. So Jackie had running and then a canoe, and some people have sleeping. So I feel like everyone can find someone else that is kind of like, yeah, I also feel like that could be me too. Um, thank you guys for participating. I appreciate that.
Could we ask you, Riley,
Today,
which ones would you choose?
yeah, I last weekend I was on a trip as well, and I was in South Korea. So I'd probably pick a bowl of rice, and then this next weekend I'd probably pick sleep to catch back up on the sleep that I missed. So
That's that's a deep emoji dive. I like it. Thank you.
yeah. Okay, so today I hope that you guys will be able to identify key components of effective professional development for teachers, and be able to identify factors that influence the effectiveness for coaching in schools. And then you'll be able to understand how professional development and coaching impact teachers' attitudes, confidence, and their instructional mindset. Um, Kind of as just a little background, because I worry when Jennifer and I were talking about like the terminology. I come from a teacher background, and so when I would say like, oh, I'm going to attend a PD or a professional development, that would typically actually be like a training, right? A specialized educational activity designed to improve students or results. But in the teacher sphere, you're just like, oh, I'm going to go to a PD. But professional development is really the overarching facilitated teaching and learning to help both. So under professional development, you have training and you have coaching. And I just want to apologize in advance if I use the incorrect terminology. It's just like what's ingrained in my mind. So I'm going to try to be a little reflective on making sure to use training and coaching and understanding that both of those fall under the umbrella of professional development. Desimone and Garrett highlighted 5 features of effective professional development. So number 1, it needs to have content focus. The participants need to be actively coherence, sustained duration, and collective participation. Professional development that aligns with these features and day-to-day teaching practices are more likely to be implemented in the classroom, which makes sense when you hear that. But there are also many school districts or buildings out there that might like support or get someone in from the outside that highlights a professional development, but doesn't really implement, like, affect what someone's doing in their day-to-day teaching. And it leaves them with a lack of understanding of that next step to take. Like from a Wednesday professional development, what should these teachers be able to implement in their classroom on a Thursday? And ideally, professional development is ongoing and not a one and done, just seminar or training session, right? We need opportunities to check back in for feedback. These one and done professional developments rarely lead to changes in the classroom. So this professional development, whether it's coaching and or training, a mixture of both, really need to be ongoing. When conducting training or professional development opportunities, there needs to be monitoring and feedback, delayed opportunities to check in with the teachers and then provide feedback to them. And then many teachers discussed the opportunity to discuss with the facilitator after a training session had happened. So whether that was directly after a training session and they were able to go up and ask questions, or for the facilitator to leave their contact information and make it very clear that, like, yes, these teachers or these other people receiving the professional development can reach out with any questions at any point when time arises. These allow for targeted training opportunities without the direct intensity of coaching, right? So these monitoring and feedback loops, when you are just attending a training or a teacher is just attending a training, gives opportunities for these teachers or the individuals conducting the professional development to adjust what they're teaching, right? So if we have a facilitator giving a training and then we hope that the teachers are implementing, so we're monitoring and we're checking for the feedback. Then if there's a secondary like training opportunity, if during the monitoring and feedback stage, a good majority of teachers are struggling with something, that facilitator can then adjust their lesson that they were hoping and needing to be provided with what those teachers still really need in that moment to be able to move forward without the intensity of what is typically described under coaching. Now we're going to go into a breakout room. So you'll have about 5 minutes in your breakout room, and I hope that you can designate one person in your breakout room to kind of share an answer from one of these questions. So let's discuss in your SPDIG, how is instructional coaching currently used? What has been the most successful part of instructional coaching? And just in your minds, is there anything missing with your instructional coaching within your SPDIG program? So we will have about 5 minutes. I will put these into the chat and have someone be able to kind of just be a little spokesperson for your group when we return. And I think John will split us up into groups now.
Great, Riley. Thank you. So everybody should be into a group or into a room. Of course, you can select the little Rubik's Cube looking icon at the bottom of your screen. Probably everybody's familiar with that already, and join your group. As Riley said, you can grab the questions out of the chat once she puts those in as well, and we'll come back in 5 minutes.
Just our last second, we talked about that right now the opportunity for like video coaching, or like you're recording it and then it's going to the coach, might be beneficial in places where you do have more of that rural setting, where it might be more time efficient to not have to drive to all of those school sites and be able to give those teachers that feedback. So that was just one small thing that we talked about. But what about group one?
I think that was us. And
Perfect.
between the three of us, I think what we landed on was relationships, and how important it is to build those relationships with those that you're coaching.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that's really important too. And I think I'll talk about that a little bit later. But that relationship does really need to be cohesive on both sides to get that trust built and that rapport. What about group two?
I think we were in group two. I think I was group two. I think one of the big things around this big is change. And I think every group said something about, well, we've had a lot of change and we're rebuilding and we're doing all of that stuff. Um, there was a good train the trainer, so that sustainability in coaching. So we're not just going into schools. We're training we're training somebody at the school to do the coaching so that it's consistent past coaching. We're doing a lot more in-person coaching in Idaho now than we have in the past. And I think that's it, but we're making progress despite changes.
Thank you. Group three?
And not everyone may have noticed what group they're in. Just a heads up, Riley. Because I wasn't
Okay.
really thinking about it myself, so I'm gonna
Yeah.
guess I wasn't the only one.
I don't
Okay.
know. I'm not sure if I was group three, but I can talk for my group and I can share that
Perfect.
one of the things that we talked about was building that internal capacity. So I think that is a key element in doing instructional coaching. And I think that ties in nicely to sustainability. So thinking about that and building and coaching and trying to develop coaches in those sites as well.
Yeah. Thank you. If you know if you're group four, maybe. And John, quick question. How many groups did we have? I know I was five, but maybe we had
Great
10.
question. We had 11 groups actually.
Perfect.
And Laura just shared actually for group four.
There you go. I was close to it.
Perfect. Any other groups? I'm just going to open it up and then we'll get moving. If any other groups feel like they would like to share a little tidbit, maybe one or two more groups can share and then we'll get going.
This is Tammy in Montana. John Lind from Minnesota. We talked more about how we do systems level coaching, not instructional coaching. And so we are often training district coordinators in the districts in systems level and providing systems level coaching, not instructional coaching through both of our projects. And it's often targeted coaching, working with a whole school or a whole team or multiple teams.
Okay, interesting. Thank you. Thank you guys all for sharing. Just for the interest of time, we'll go on to our next section. When thinking about coaching, there were some key things I found in the research that coaching can be another avenue of professional development to support specifically in-service teachers is the literature that I was focusing on. And we see legislation like ESSA that mentions that schools are encouraged to train and develop coaches to work with their teachers. So kind of like Beth and Laura talked about, like building that sustainability within your system that you have in place. Coaching provides a more personal and smaller basis than other professional development opportunities. And coaching, along with providing instructional materials and additional training opportunities, have shown to have the most significant student improvements. So that's training, coaching, and then after that, ensuring that teachers have the necessary instructional materials to go into the classroom and implement what they're learning. And when we think about creating change, changing teachers' instructional practices is typically easier than increasing their content knowledge. So when we look at the 5 features of effective professional development that were highlighted earlier, like active listening, duration, collective participation, coherence, and content focus, we see that coaches are able to tweak and adjust to the specific needs of the teacher rather than providing a training opportunity and having to meet the needs of 20 to 30 teachers all at once, right? The impact of coaching on students. So more hours of content-specific coaching can corresponded with higher student achievement outcomes. And teachers were often engaged in more rich and sensitive conversations with their students after engaging in coaching. And teachers who received coaching showed significant changes for positive classroom environments, language use, and a more open emotional climate, which I think are smaller things. Like, yes, we do care about the academic outcomes of the students, but also if it is creating this more positive and welcoming classroom environment, that's also something that needs to be noted. We want students to feel safe and welcome when they come to school every day.
Can I make a quick comment, Riley?
Yes.
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt your train of thought, but it is interesting, that third bullet, because when I've done some lit reviews myself on coaching in the past, there are quite a few studies related to, say, positive behavioral interventions and supports. So coaching in that area.
Yeah.
And I think they're, like Riley said, they're both important. We want to know about impact on academics, but also there is these other efforts as well, and coaching happens there, and so we can see the impact of coaching there as well.
Yeah.
And then one other comment from the slide before that about instructional materials. There's really good research that if you do, and I'm really just repeating what Riley said, but there's good research that if you do all those things she was talking about, that in professional development, if it's coherent and it's in the duration's enough, etc., and you're focused on and good instructional materials that they need to use anyways, then you have this big impact. It's not always going to be about that, right? There are other things. But the conversation that sometimes is challenging, everyone's talking about high quality instructional materials now. And I think that's good and useful, but they're not always talking about evidence-based materials, right? They're often saying they're aligned to standards and they're pretty easy for teachers to use, or they've got enough supports for teachers to use, but they're not necessarily saying, we know this curriculum has an impact on child outcomes, right? So that's just one thing. We're not really going to get into it here. Maybe it's a future conversation, but I think it's important when someone says high quality instructional material, they're not saying an evidence-based instructional material. So you kind of have to, check under the hood to understand if that curriculum really meets the needs. So thank you, Riley, for letting me take that little side street.
Yes, absolutely. So when we talk about what makes coaching effective, I might have been the first group that you need that cohesive relationship between the teacher and the coach, right? They need to be able to build that rapport, have that trust in each other. And really, from what else I saw is that within the school system and the organizational culture of the school, the coaches needed to be viewed as the subject matter expert on what they're coaching. So the organizational culture and leadership in the school really needs to promote the use of coaches in a beneficial way. We need to look at the background of the teacher and how then the coach needs to adjust their coaching practices. So key components from the teacher background might be their pre-service training, their educational background, or their previous experience, right? If everyone is receiving coaching, whether you are a 10-year experienced teacher or you're a first year barely out of pre-service training, receiving coaching, how that coach should approach their aspect might be incredibly different, right? They have different levels of knowledge, they have different levels of educational background, how long they've been in the school setting. And so with coaching, you can adjust at a more personal level. And something else that I found interesting was that there was no set number of hours for coaching to be successful. And I think that to get like for the most bang for your buck, you want to say, oh, we need to provide 40 hours of coaching, or every month we need 2 hours of coaching. But there was not one number that said that this is how we are going to improve student outcomes or how we are going to create change for teachers in their day-to-day instructional strategies and practices. We are going to do a little Mentimeter. So on the first, I'm going to put the link into our chat, and I hope it works and we'll be able to answer our 2 questions. If you guys are not able to see it, please let me know. And I am going to share my screen here. Okay. So, what aspects of coaching has been the most successful to teachers in your SPIDIG, or if you do the more district level coaching, what has been the most successful for your project? If you guys are able to get in and answer. If not, we will pivot. I'll give us probably about 2 minutes just for the sake of time, and then we'll go on to the next one and keep going. So if you're able to get in, great. If not, no pressure.
And folks can also add their information if you can't get in. I was able to get in. So usually on a federal government computer, if I can get in, anyone could. But you can put your information in the chat and I can also insert it for you if you're having issues.
Perfect. Thank you, Jennifer. I think we will continue to see data as a big word here as we keep going. For someone that put data, I just have a question. Is the coaching kind of teaching the teacher how to look at data, or what would you say data specifically has been the most impactful for those teachers?
Riley, are you able to quickly go into Menti? I just realized mine's view only as well. Can you make us editors?
Yes.
Obviously, it's working for some people. I don't know why myself and others aren't having the same.
Yeah, it didn't work for me, so I just scanned the QR code with my phone.
Okay.
I did the same. Yeah, QR code.
I'm not sure how to do it unless I get out, so I might have to do
Okay.
it.
So people can just do it on their phone. Thanks everyone for the workaround.
Thank you. Thank you guys. Sorry about that. All right, that's our 2 minutes. So we see relationships is a big thing, and I absolutely think so. I'm happy to see modeling in practice because I think it's important that the coach is kind of able to show what they hope that the teacher is able to implement in their classroom, right? They're not only able to talk the talk, but they're able to walk the walk, for lack of a better word. They're able to kind of show what it should look like. They're focused on the specific evidence-based practices, sustainable practices, reflection, having those reflective conversations. Those are things that can lead to meaningful change for those teachers and in those school systems, right? We're going to have one more and then we'll get going. So what outcomes does your SPDIG monitor in terms of coaching and professional development? So are there specific data points? Are you looking for student outcomes? What might that look like for you guys? I'm going to start another 2-minute timer and then we'll do a quick check back. Student outcomes, fidelity of implementation. I like to hear that. Fidelity, the gain in knowledge, knowledge change. If you are one of the people that put knowledge change or gain in knowledge, are you talking about student change? Or are you talking about teacher change? Observed practices, coaching logs, coaching impact, increased student engagement. Great. All right. We have about 20 seconds and then we will get going. Fidelity, systems improvement, goal attainment, pre and post data. Absolutely. All right. Perfect. Thank you guys for participating in that. And maybe if your project runs something different, maybe this would provide an idea for you when you're thinking about what you could track meaningfully in your SPDIG or for coaching and professional development. I'm going to go back to my slides. And I'm going to go a little bit faster just so the other group has all of their time necessary. So why should we have professional development for teachers? So if we have only training opportunities, it provides teachers with feeling more confident. Teachers have an adjusted mindset about student groupings and student abilities. And outside reviewers saw significant increases in teachers' instructional practices. But when we have training with coaching, we see higher quality teaching that was able to be generalized into other settings. Teachers' perception of their coping strategies significantly improved, and teachers were able to maintain new instructional strategies more than those who just received training alone.
And
So
just so
in
you know,
conclusion,
Riley, oh, sorry, it's your last one, but it's not on presenter view right now. It's on the other view, just so you know.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Okay. So teachers who participate in the one-off or one-time training sessions with no coaching show the poorest quality teaching in comparison to any level of teaching or training. So those one-off opportunity sessions really don't show meaningful change in the classrooms. Same studies showed teachers that provided with training, a coach, and feedback on student progress in response to the training was associated with the highest quality teaching. So once you're given training, a coach, and feedback, you're given all of the things. This one didn't focus on any instructional materials that were provided, but those aspects related to the highest quality of teaching. And teachers who receive coaching are better at implementing high quality instruction, better instructional practices, and they're able to implement what was taught in training sessions quicker and more effectively. So when we think about coaching, yes, it does seem to help teachers and then relate to student outcomes as well. I did have a poll, but I'm not going to run it just for sake of time, so the next group can get started. Thank you guys so much for listening and being participants. Yep, thank you.
Yeah, Riley, that was fantastic. I'm so glad that you were able to do this work for us. And John, where can folks find Riley's report or her lit review analysis?
It'll be on the event calendar for today's event on the SIG Network website. I will get that up as soon as we are done with our show today. And I will also include a link to that site on the follow-up message that'll be sent either tomorrow or Monday.
Okay, great. Okay, so we see some need for both training and coaching. I have always felt pretty comfortable with it. Hopefully more folks are feeling comfortable. I think where it becomes even more challenging is when you are talking about asynchronous learning, right? So the learning online. And I think we need to continue to be in conversation about what that can look like. All right. Thank you again, Riley. Thank you, Beth, for setting us up, so to speak, and for supporting Riley in this work. We appreciate you. All right. So our next group is from Pennsylvania, as promised. This continues our conversation around partners, especially family partners with your work. Just a reminder as folks write their applications, in case it's been a few years since you wrote yours, every year in the informational webinar, I talk about the importance of family engagement, of connecting with family partners and figuring out where their strengths lie and how they can help you reach objectives of your grant. I also talk about the importance of measuring success. And then more recently, we've been talking about partnering with them for dissemination. And so I'm going to let folks introduce themselves and families to the max. But again, I want to stress the fact that Pennsylvania has been working on these partnerships for years. They continue to do the hard work. It was this was even prior to Laura's time with the project. They went through some really messy, uncomfortable times to get here. And you have to appreciate that. I don't know if anyone remembers, this is years ago, but with CSEP, and actually like Holly, Selena, a few others out there may remember this. So when CSEP first started, the State Implementation and Scaling Up of Evidence-Based Practices TA Center, so they focus on supporting states in their implementation. When they first started, Dean Fixon and Karen Blasey were leading things. And Karen had lots of little epigrams. And one of them was, if it's worth doing poorly or badly. And I liked the basic idea behind it, but I didn't love the way that made me think about it. And so I was working on it, and maybe you guys can come up with something better, but if it's worth doing awkwardly. So, you're going to be awkward at first when you do these things. That's just part of it. And then you hopefully get through that to the other side. But the awkwardness is a very worthwhile side effect of taking these brave steps. So with that, I will turn it over to Laura Bright, Project Director of the SPDIG in Pennsylvania, and the rest of the team. Jill, Nikki, Jackie, welcome.
Thank you.
I'm going to turn it actually over to Jackie DiDomenico.
Nikki's going to take. Nikki, do you want me to do the intro?
No, I can do these slides. I apologize to everybody. I can't put
Sorry.
my camera on because I'm at a doctor's appointment with my son, but I didn't want to miss this. And so I apologize that I am not fully present. As Jennifer said, we're Families to the Max, and our vision is to empower students, families, and communities to believe that all children can reach their maximum potential. And our mission is leading change for children with diverse needs by maximizing opportunities in the home, classroom, and community. And we've stood by this mission and vision since Families and Partners wrote it a few grants ago. So what is Families to the Max? We're the Pennsylvania statewide family network made up of both parents and professionals. The network came out of an educational initiative based on the idea of presuming competence and fostering high expectations for students of all abilities. And many of you have heard us talk before about how we want grade level curriculum for all students in any setting that they're in. And we're a collaboration between Pennsylvania Families, Individuals, Patton, HUNE, and Peel. So I'm going to turn it over to Jackie for this.
So a little bit about us. You noticed on the intro slide, I am the parent partner coordinator. Nikki and Jill are our regional family council lead chair and co-chair, vice chair. As you know, Laura is our bureau advisor, our special education advisor, and our SPDIG director. We're also joined on the call by a number of participants from our partner organizations. And we do note those in the next coming slides. So a little bit about us. We are all Pennsylvania folks, but we want to know about you. So here's our little intro. With the upcoming end of the school year, moving into what might be vacation for some folks, some of us are 12-monthers. What are you looking at? Are you looking at a sand and sea kind of getaway, or are you more timbers and trails? So go ahead and drop that in the chat just to kind of get your mind around that. And then I'm going to get ready to turn it over to Laura Bray. Just going to pull up the chat on my other window and see if we've got more sand and sea or more timber and trails.
It's kind of mixed, Jackie. I'm seeing
it
a
does.
There.
Oh,
Yeah,
somebody's going to Spain to see their sand and sea. I like it both. There's a lot of both coming in now. A little bit of both. All right. Laura, take it away.
Right. So as Jennifer was alluding to, that the relationships that we have did not happen overnight. These have evolved over time and they continue to evolve, and they haven't always been easy. So we participated in the Generative Relationship STAR activity from Liberating Structures a few years ago in our SIG Network conference. And it really highlighted for us how difficult relationship building can be, especially in those early stages. And that was very much true for us with Families to the Max. Now, I was not personally in the room during those earliest meetings, but I have heard from many individuals who were, including Shadow Rupa Potter, who was the project director at that time, and Becky Fogel, who was the Patton East director and also really helped lead in this work. And they shared that there were tremendous challenges and tensions and opportunities that needed to be learned as the relationships were building between the partners. So at that time, that activity also really helped us realize that we weren't done. It's still maintaining the relationships over time. And that's especially true with project turnover, shifting roles, organizational change. So it continues. We continue developing relationships, and new challenges are always coming. But one thing that has remained constant is we really continue to work together intentionally, and we continuously work to sustain the network. So we're also always thinking about sustainability because the relationships themselves are what make this work possible. So you're going to be hearing some of the key ingredients, and I want you to remember relationships, and that's going to be central throughout all of our presentation. So what's working for us? One thing that has really worked for us is that the entire grant team is really functioning as one large collaborative unit. So we're not working in silos that are tied to specific pieces, but really in a unified effort. This is not to say that there's meetings or work that happen separately, but overarchingly, we work together and we collaborate to ensure dynamic engagement and collaboration. So in our current SPDIG Success for PA Early Learners, or SPEL, we're focused on providing intensive professional development and coaching to support evidence-based practices that improve literacy, school engagement, and family engagement from birth through elementary school. Throughout this work, we are very intentional about ensuring that all organizations and partners are not simply included. And this is really key because you can invite people to the table, but we're really engaging and we're collaborating together. And that is something, again, through that relationship building. It doesn't happen overnight and it continues to evolve over time. So we're going to take a moment. We're going to do a little activity. Oh, do we have the activity next, or is this the next slide, Jackie? There's a short
Sorry,
little
this came before it. This was a quick touch on the collaboration and then the waterfall activity.
Okay, all right. So this is really showing again that ongoing partnership that we have through all of our partners. So this is not just one organization. So when you think about the potential challenges of bringing this together, each organization can be siloed, but really with Families to the Max, we're working collaboratively across. So our key partners are from birth all the way to school age. We have representation here today from our Bureau of Early Intervention and Family Supports, and all the way to our Bureau of Special Education. So Dr. Kim Rode, who's the director of the Bureau of Early Intervention and Family Supports, is here, and then also our director of the Bureau of Special Education. We also have HUNE, which is our CPRC, and PEAL, which is our PTI, PATN, which is our technical assistance arm of the Bureau, and also EITA, which is the technical assistance arm of early intervention. So these are our key partners that are really helping to lead and guide the work. And at the beginning, it really was the partners leading the work. And over time, this has evolved and shifted to being much more and is family-led. That brings new conversations and sometimes challenges. But the big message is that we're working through it together and we're evolving together. So here is our waterfall activity. And what we are going to do, if you've not done this before, I'm going to ask a question, and you're going to then put it into the chat, your answer. But you're going to put it in the chat after I count down, and I'm going to count to 1, and that's when you're going to put it in. So when you hear the phrase relationship, what is one word that comes to mind? So again, when you hear the phrase relationship or relationship building, what is one word that comes to mind? So here we go. 3, 2, 1, go. And you can start writing what you see in the chat. Oh, wow, you guys are fast. Good. So I'm seeing a lot in connect, trust, family, trust, earned. And these are all really key components that we have been hearing and that are essential. So again, for us, that collaboration has really been essential. And as you can just see in this picture, this is all of our families and all of our partners coming together and really elevating the collaboration of all different partners and the work that we are doing. This has people from PDE in it, from our patent system, family members. Our director of our Bureau of Special Education is right in the center. So it really does take time, and it really has been an evolution. So those early days when the partners were coming together and having conversations and moving this work forward, it's now really shifted to that it's family led with our partners supporting our families. And some really important ingredients that helped us get here was that we had an external facilitator that we still have, who's unfortunately she's retiring, but has been really instrumental to helping us guide this work. It was also coming up with a shared vision that we could all rally behind and believe in that really helps us come back to our commitment to the work. But again, it really is family led and our partners supporting it. So another really great and amazing thing that has happened in our evolution is the creation of Familios a la Maximo, which is our F2Max Hispanic group. The group was formally launched alongside with the creation of a WhatsApp app, and it's really strengthening communication, connection, and community among families. This group is now meeting twice a month and continues to build relationships and really elevate and foster a strong sense of belonging and support among our Spanish-speaking families across the state. Another key component when thinking about this work and what allows us to continue to be moving it forward and evolving is the networking and planning. And we really do give time and resources to ensure that this is happening both formally and informally. It's through this networking and planning that we're really strengthening relationships between family leaders and the partner organizations. And as you can see on these slides, these pictures, this is just capturing some of that work. It is really working that side by side, thinking through ideas and making them into reality. We also really create opportunities for an open and honest communication that really allows every voice to be heard and respected before any decisions are made. So that really helps us with families, and they're all volunteers. So our families are volunteers, and giving this time for them to connect and to do work and engage with one another is essential. Another really important thing to note about this is that we meet parents where they're at. So we're really flexible when thinking about when we're going to be doing these events. We offer events during the day and in the evening. Whenever we bring families over together for an overnight event, we do it on a Friday and a Saturday. We have found that works best for them. And we also meet families where they are. We know families at some points can come and stay for a whole event or a whole meeting. Other times they might just be able to come for 5 minutes, come, go. And then sometimes there's a point in their life where they can give a lot and then withdraw for a little bit and then come back. So again, it's providing these opportunities for families to engage in a really meaningful way. And one thing that I hear over and over again from families is that when they see that their work is leading to change, when it's shifting systems, when they see what they contribute actually is changing practice, they want to stay involved and they get really excited and they want to be there, and it's like their voice is being heard, and it's very, very powerful. So again, there are sometimes obstacles that we are encountering as we go more from this partner-led to family-led. This photo really captures the spirit of our work. We're all coming together and working again side by side and building trust in our relationships and meeting each other where they are. So again, this is still a learning process for us. So as Jennifer kind of kicked us off and said, you know, in the beginning it was quite messy, and it really has gone from that partner messy meetings in the early days of how can we bring this, what do we do, what's our vision, how are we going to work together, to over time just the partners letting go more and the families leading the work and the partners taking more of a back seat, allowing the families to lead and supporting them in their work. I'm now going to turn it over.
All right, now I'm going into success and how we measure success. We want to make sure that you understand that even this relationship building, even this creating this network from a vision to an actuality, we wanted to make sure we were capturing this and capturing data. Some of our partners in these organizations capture their own data, so it's they're working from their from their perspective what they need. So whether Patton needs data, Peel needs data, HUNI needs data, or the Bureau, and then the grant when we're coming back with filling out our yearly report back. So this is a poster that was created a couple years back. So some of the numbers might be tweaked a little, but you'll see in here we attend national conferences, statewide presentations, trainings in both English and Spanish. We have our Spell Family Ambassador Pilot Program, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about. And then leaders across the Commonwealth. And we like to say when we bring parents in, they're already leaders. And we like to emphasize that they are there and they are representative of maybe just their child and leading change for their child. But we then inform them that typically that means they're leading change for more than just their child. And they embrace that. When we look at the Family Ambassador Pilot Program, we like to make sure that we highlight the fact that this was information that was brought to Families to the Max through our Special Ed Advisory Panel, SEEP in Pennsylvania. They highlighted the fact that parents were saying that transition from early intervention to school age was bumpy, and we like to say not a warm handoff or lacked a warm handoff. When that information came to our network, a lot of heads were nodding. Jennifer mentioned how you look like a bobblehead. Like people were saying, yes, I agree. Whether your own personal transition was 20 years before that comment was made or 2 years before, we had a lot of people acknowledging that it wasn't a smooth sailing. In that, we recognize the need for, what can we do as a statewide family network? And we brought together 19 plus agencies. And I say that because every time I make the list, somebody says, oh yeah, and them. Oh yeah, and them. From statewide, our PTI, our CPRC, to regional, somebody said, oh, this group, they do really good work with mental health and can, and I think they'd be good part of the conversation. So we had these entities, they came together. The big takeaway from it was we need a resource, a place where parents can go and not have to struggle to find the information they need, whether their child is birth to 3 to 5, or beyond. And so we're trying to build a resource repository that's underway. And the other part was creating what was then called a family ambassador. And when we created that, it just went into a file. It really did. It was, here's the criteria we think would fit. Here's the role identification. It was the vision of these parents and these agencies, people that came together and created it. And we were lucky enough that when this most recent SPDIG was announced, it was written into the grant. So we kind of feel like it's phenomenal that everything kind of fell into place. And the data we're collecting from the pilot is instrumental in kind of like making it, hey, this is impactful, and hopefully it will then spread. We're collecting data from the ambassadors themselves. We're collecting data from the individuals that they're supporting, whether they're the school side or the family side. And trying to make sure that we can kind of, advertise how it's working and how it's supporting students while they transition from early intervention to school age. And then finally, another data point, of course, I just turned on my pencil instead of advancing my slide. Another data point, or another place we're collecting data, is that we created a family engagement and transition survey. So we're looking at 2 different components when we're surveying families. If they had a child who recently transitioned to kindergarten, they're asked additional questions, but the majority, the bulk of what folks are answering is your school engaging you in the IEP process? Do you feel like your voice is heard? And it's a Likert scale, so we know we get back feedback that can help direct us. the nice part about this is we're trying to advertise. This was what the survey told us. Here's what we've done about it. Because surveying doesn't really matter if you don't take any of that data and put it to use. So we developed the survey. We sent it out typically in the early fall. And we get responses back from the families. The other thing that we did as a statewide family network is the families reached out to the specific schools that are implementing SPELL. And we said, how can we help you on your family engagement efforts? And that got a really good response. I know Jill, Nikki, myself, a couple other key members of our family council and some of other partners have gone out and supported those different asks, whether it was, can you come to the vendor fair? Can you come to our back to school night? Can you talk to our parents about communicating effectively? Like different asks were made, and we followed through on those. And we intend to continue to do that for the life of this grant and most likely the next one. All right, I think I am turning it over to Jill.
Hello. Hi. So again, I am Jill. I am the council chair for Families to the Max, and I've been involved in this work since kind of the get-go, like 12, 13 years. So I'm really excited about this. And it does take time. I want to emphasize that it has been a work in progress, and we're still working together. And I think that's the important part to note here. It is the how we work together to bring that vision to life, and how do we support the dissemination of the objectives of Families to Max, or the objectives of what particular grant that our SPDIG is working on, and how we as families can support that work. And I know we have taken like the dissemination workbook that was shared previously, right? We as Families to Max are now taking that and thinking about how we can think about that sustainability of our, not only of our network, but how we help sustain the work of the grants. So we celebrate the outcomes of working collaboratively. We firmly believe that in Families to the Max, that we only get anywhere we're going to get our children and their outcomes, and where we as family members working together with our educators and our community members is through that collaboration. And that collaboration is so much evidence in that work that amongst all our partners in our state, in the Commonwealth. And so we did start together as families had input. It was partner led, and we've already talked about this a little bit, but then now we are at the point where family voice is elevated, and we're supported by our partners and all the entities within our state. And I think families really, I think they're looking, you saw in the waterfall about trust, communication, connection, when they see that change, they see things changing, they see the support of all levels within the state, that really keeps families engaged and wanting to do that work. We have done so many things in the meantime in these years is developing courses. So originally the courses for our first grant, 2 grant cycles ago, actually 3 now, we're in our 3rd one now, Families to Max being part of the grants work. The partners developed what we call our foundational courses, which we still do trainings to our families or any schools that ask for these trainings. And now any trainings that we do, it's definitely a collaboration of family voice and that professional, what do we know to be true, research-based, right? So currently right now, an example is one of our tenants, or one of the works within the grant, is literacy for early learners. And we had the specialists who had the reading specialists and within the state who have the know-how developed an outline, and we as family members had the opportunity to look at that, especially through the lens of us who have children with disabilities, and what input that can we add so that when we start sharing this information, whether it's a tip sheet, whether it's an actual course, usually an hour long, that we can give to families, which really helps with that dissemination that we're talking about and sustainability of all the grant work that we're doing. But we only do that because we're collaboratively working together. let's see, next slide. Okay. So to that point is that we have been, I think that one of the primary, mechanisms of that sustainability of the grant. Like I said, we are still doing those trainings on those, on concepts and what professional development, like Riley was talking about earlier, professional development and coaching that was happening in schoolrooms and school buildings. We can also disseminate, companion information to families, because we believe that families and educators and community members working together, our kids will reach their potential. And so that is one way that we work together. We've been very mindful about that sustainability. What can we do in order to provide families the resources that they need to help their child to be successful in school, and that they would be successful and have outcomes that would perhaps and hopefully be better than the outcomes, and if we hadn't given them the resources and guidance that they can use. Okay, I think we're going to move on.
Jill, before we move from that,
Go on,
can I
Nikki.
just add one more thing?
Mhm.
I think Jill said it, but just to make the point, each one of these grants has a different piece to it. And because of Families to the Max doing these different courses and holding each grant and saying to ourselves, we want to keep this work going, the families across the state are still hearing from 2 grants ago, and they will continue to. And like Jill said, we're working on this literacy course for families. And once we do that, then this grant will live on beyond its time as well, which we find very exciting, because a lot of these pieces are really great key components for families to continue to hear.
For sure. Thank you, Nikki. So I know last meeting we were we talked about the Nostr model. So we thought we would work through this about from our perspective, and our strengths, our challenges, and where where we're heading and where we've been. And so we're going to attempt to go through this. So Nikki and I are going to go talk through this section. Let me see. Okay. So we recognize that all components are necessary to affect change. So at that top row, you can see all the pretty colors. All those pieces are needed in order for change to occur. And we know that if one piece is missing, that may cause these other things in that right column to happen. So we recognize we have some strengths in some, and some of these, and we have some challenges. So we're going to work through them. Some we're solid in, and some we are still working on, and some we go back and we have to revisit, right? Because things change, like we said, turnover, whether it's in management, whether it's in family leadership, it causes sometimes then to have to go revisit any one of these particular rectangles. So, Nikki, you want to take vision?
I'll take vision, because vision's an easy one. I think we always have our vision. It's a definite strength, but we do keep coming back to it. There's a common purpose that we have to keep coming back to and revisiting. Families, educators, and agencies are united around presuming competence and having high expectations for all children, but especially those with disabilities, that they can reach their maximum potential. Access to the general education curriculum, regardless of placement, is a core tenet of Families to the Max. And we firmly believe that systems change will only happen when families, professionals, and community members join, not divide. Our grant partners and family leaders are aligned, not hierarchical. So we all work together as one team, and that vision sticks with us.
Okay, skills is the next one on the graph. And so we're always building family leadership, right? That also, dovetails in that whole building relationships. So while we're building family leaderships, that is the driver of the network, and intentionally putting in place family leadership structures. So we're really excited because this year, finally, after, like I said, 12, 13 years, we have our regional family leaders now appointed. We had a council appointed, elected a couple years years ago. I think we're in our 4th year of having a council. And now this year, we just appointed our regional family leaders, which are in different regions of the state. And then our hope is, our vision is to have a local family leader. And in Pennsylvania, I think we have 501 school districts. I don't know, over 500 school districts. Our hope is to have a local family leader in each of those school districts, almost acting as a coach. We just talked about coaching. In some ways, how do we help families, help their children to be successful in school? We provide presentations along our parent partners. So we co-lead. So we model that. We model families and educators working together. We want to model that because in our school systems, we want to model that families and educators should be working together at the IEP table, right? It should be collaborative. We should be working through solutions, even when things get tough. And I think, those skills, we're always developing leadership skills. I know myself personally, interestingly enough, many of our family leaders would say, I'm not a leader. We're always saying, if you are at the IEP team table and you're affecting change for your child, you're a leader. You already have skills already embedded in you. And we just develop them. We work together as families, as partners in developing those leadership skills at a broader level. And the other thing in Families to Max we do is we really use what a person's natural strengths and abilities are and use them in ways that are meaningful to them so they feel connected. And that has worked well for us. So there are skills that they already come to the table with, we utilize as best we can.
All right. So next is motivation, and I'm stepping in for Nikki. We want to make sure that we don't make this sound so easy, but when you talk about motivation, sometimes parents come at it already, right? They're coming at it with a passion. They want to make sure that they're, helping their student, but also helping other students. And what we also know as the family leaders that are already in this organization, we're already saying that what we're doing is helping navigate special education. So whether they're a council member or regional family leader, they're doing that work. They're motivated themselves, but they're also motivating. So as much as it sounds wonderful, we also recognize that volunteer part of it can sometimes, be a glitch. So that's one of those constant challenges that we have the motivation. We know people come in motivated. We know people are in there motivating, but we often have we might have a hiccup every now and then if we have to look at what a barrier could be. All right, I think we're going to do a really quick multi. Yep.
Can I add something real quick, Jackie? Another thing I think that's also very motivating for our family leaders, it's not what you get to learn to know, it's also who you get to know. Yes. And I want to acknowledge that I'm an emotional person, so excuse me. The leadership that's even on this call, because they knew we were presenting, we know we have their support. And some families, to them, that's really important to get that they know they have the ear of the people who can affect systems change in leadership in schools. But, for others, it's just that they don't want that struggle that they went through. It's very personal for them, but they can see the benefit of if we can affect change for all students or more students that are similar to my child, that's really motivating to them. So I think families come to the work from the family perspective for very many different reasons. But I do think it's because they feel their voices being heard and they are seeing change. I'm sorry, go on.
No, that's okay. We're down to 4 minutes. So we wanted to know what motivates you either personally or professionally. If you go ahead and fill that out, I'm going to hop up a few slides and I can always come back if we have results. All right. So the next one is resources. And I can tell you that our resources are available for family leaders, families that come to us and need resources, professionals. We find that sometimes when we start sharing and the parents go and the families share it with their school teams, the school teams then call us and say, hey, can I get that? Can you come do that for our staff? We want to make sure that we have our resources available at all levels. So we do try and keep the family-friendly language in there. We also make sure that anything we're producing in English, we're producing in Spanish, and we give a high five to our Hune partners that really help us with that. And that we make sure that when we learn of a resource that isn't necessarily Pat and Peel or Hune created or Families to the Max created, we're not going to say, hey, we can't share that, it's not ours. If it aligns with what we're talking about, it aligns with our grant work, it aligns with our, moving things forward, we'll, share that as well. Our action plan, we hold an annual meeting. We just wrapped it up a couple weeks ago, and it is powerful. And anybody who's attended it will tell you that you leave rejuvenated. We make sure that we're capturing all the families that are there and the parent voice around what they think is where we should focus our energies. And that is what drives our work for the next fiscal year. Finally, change. Jill, you want to take this and do it in a minute and a half?
Sure, I can do it in a minute and a half. So the impact of F2 Max and the collaborative partnerships is difficult to quantify, but we know that empowering families with reliable, research-based information and resources, coupled with the sharing of families' lived experiences, Families to Max, a lot of that change happens through families sharing the change that happened for their child, or they see it happening for families in their school district. And then we know that systems change is happening. It may seem like it's happening slowly, but we know it's happening. And like I said, sharing those stories really is very impactful. And then it doesn't mean there aren't challenges, but if we can get others to see a glimpse of what is possible for our children, minds and hearts begin to shift. And we do see that happening, and that's very exciting.
We have a colleague that say this is the heart and mind work. All right, so questions and answers. We have probably 30 seconds. We will throw this slide up. If you're interested in getting any of our information, you can visit the tiny URL at the PAF2 Max. You can scan the QR code. It'll take you there as well. You can join our network. You would get our email, our monthly information out. We have a Facebook and an Instagram. Don't ask me about Instagram. I am too dated to know what I'm doing on Instagram.
I won't ask you about Instagram, but I will say a couple of things that stood out for me personally. I'd love to, if others who are participating, I should say, not the audience, we're participants. If others who are participating want to add one or two things that really caught your fancy, made you think you might want to apply to your grant, if you could add that to the chat right now, that'd be great. But one thing that stood out to me was how you sought out data and how you use those data from families, right? And so often it's a problem for SPDIGs to get good data back, or it's a problem for a state. Say if we're talking about Part B Indicator 8, it can be really challenging to get those data back. The more families think you're using their information, the better, just like anyone else, right? It's really is not different. But it's so clear that you knew what folks were asking for, you gave it, and then you found out what was working. I loved the fact that you have ambassadors. I think one of the most powerful things for the PBIS work has been that each state has a liaison, right? You always know who you can reach out to. That information is housed in one place. Actually, people stick around for pretty long, but if it changed, you'd know where to go to find out who that person is. That is really, really a strong idea. I love that. There was something else. I should have jotted it down because it struck me as just such a good idea. So thank you for sharing all this good work, talking about the different factors of complex change and what you've been doing with it. Again, everyone's going to have their own strengths in their state. So if you find something you can apply from this, we'd be interested in hearing about it. I see that we heard commitment and consistency. That's right. It takes persistence, no doubt. Genuinely engaging, including and valuing parents, and authentic intent. Like that a lot. I think we'd all want to hear that that we are seen to have authentic intent, and very much parent led. thank you so much. We're at time. Thank you, John, for organizing us. Thank you to Riley and Beth. And thank you, Nikki, for joining us despite being in a doctor's appointment. Our hats off to you. Everyone have a good afternoon. All right. Bye.